A young man drives toward a quiet border crossing with nothing but a rented car and R1.75 million in cash hidden in the boot. Within minutes, police uncover the money, make an arrest, and hint at something far bigger: possible money laundering, cross-border crime, maybe even a network operating in the shadows. For a moment, it looks like the beginning of a major crackdown. And then nothing. No follow-up headlines. No detailed court updates. No clarity on where the money came from or where it was supposed to go. Just silence. So the real question isn't just about the cash. It's about what happens when a case this big simply fades away. If you want more stories like this, where the truth isn't always obvious, make sure you like and subscribe, because some of these cases don't end the way you expect. This story matters right now because it touches on something bigger than one arrest. It's about trust. Trust in law enforcement, a trust in the justice system, and trust that when something suspicious is uncovered, especially involving millions in cash, it doesn't just disappear behind closed doors. Because when cases go quiet, people start asking questions. And sometimes, those questions are more revealing than the answers. To understand why this case is raising eyebrows, you have to go back to the beginning. It's the 19th of September, 2025. A relatively ordinary day at the Stockport Border Post, near Lephalale, a town close to South Africa's border with Botswana. This isn't one of the busiest crossings in the country, but it's significant enough, especially for trade, transport, and unfortunately, at times, illicit movement. Border posts like this are under constant watch. Vehicles pass through, documents are checked, and occasionally, something unusual triggers a closer inspection. On that day, a 24-year-old man was driving a rented vehicle toward the border. At first glance, nothing seemed out of place. But something caught the attention of authorities. What exactly raised suspicion hasn't been fully disclosed. Was it his behavior? The condition of the vehicle? Or was there prior intelligence involved? That detail remains unclear. But what is clear is that police decided to search the vehicle. And that's when everything changed. Inside the boot, officers discovered a staggering amount of cash, R1.75 million. Not declared. Not documented. Just packed away, hidden. In that moment, what could have been a routine border check turned into a major criminal investigation. The man was immediately arrested. Authorities moved quickly. Initial reports suggested that this wasn't just about someone carrying a large sum of money. There were early indications pointing toward possible money laundering. And if that was true, this case could be linked to something much bigger. But here's where things get disturbing. Despite the scale of the discovery, the details that followed were surprisingly limited. According to early statements, the suspect was expected to appear before the Lephalale Magistrates' Court shortly after his arrest. That's standard procedure. Arrest, charge, court appearance. From there, the legal process begins. But what happened next raised serious questions. Because after those initial reports, the update stopped. No widely reported court outcomes. No confirmed charges beyond the initial suspicion. No detailed explanation of where the money came from or who it belonged to. Just silence. And that silence is exactly what's causing concern. To piece together what might have happened, let's break down the timeline more carefully. The arrest happens on September 19th, 2025. News spreads quickly. A young man. A rented car. Nearly 2 million rand in cash. It's the kind of story that grabs attention instantly. Within days, media outlets report the basics. The location. The amount of money. The suspected link to money laundering. There's an expectation that more information will follow. Maybe details about the suspect's identity. Maybe connections to known criminal operations. Maybe even a broader investigation. But as days turn into weeks, the story doesn't develop. No major press briefings. No updates from law enforcement explaining the next steps. No public confirmation of whether the suspect was formally charged, released, or still under investigation. And this is the part few people are talking about. Cases involving large sums of cash, especially undeclared money at a border, rarely exist in isolation. Money like that usually has a source and a destination. So, where was this R1.75 million coming from? Was it linked to illegal businesses? Corruption? Organized crime? And perhaps even more importantly, where was it going? Cross-border cash movement is often associated with attempts to move money beyond the reach of authorities. Sometimes it's about avoiding taxes. Sometimes it's about funding operations that operate outside the law. And sometimes it's part of something far more complex. But without transparency, those questions remain unanswered. And when questions go unanswered, speculation begins. But here's where things get even more complicated. There's also the issue of the rented vehicle. Why use a rental? In many cases, rental cars are used to avoid direct association. They create distance between the individual and the activity. They make it harder to trace patterns, ownership, and intent. Was this a calculated move? Or just coincidence? Again, no clear answers. And then there's the suspect himself, a 24-year-old man. That raises another question. Was he acting alone? Or was he just one piece of a larger operation? Because carrying that amount of cash isn't just risky, it's unusual. Most large financial transactions today happen electronically. So physically transporting nearly 2 million rand suggests something deliberate. Something that needed to stay off the radar. But if that's the case, then what happened after the arrest becomes even more important. Was there a deeper investigation? Were other individuals identified? Were financial records traced? Or did the case somehow lose momentum? This is where the lack of public information becomes a problem. Because transparency isn't just about satisfying curiosity. It's about accountability. When authorities make a high-profile arrest, it sends a message. It shows action. It builds confidence. But when that same case disappears from public view, it creates doubt. And that doubt can have real consequences. Because this isn't just about one incident at one border post. It connects to a broader issue, how financial crimes are handled, especially those involving cross-border activity. Money laundering, for example, is often described as a gateway crime. It allows illegal profits to be cleaned and reintroduced into the economy. And when it's not properly addressed, it can fuel everything from corruption to organized crime. So when a potential case like this doesn't lead to visible outcomes, people start asking, is the system working? Or are there gaps that allow certain cases to quietly fade away? But here's where things take another turn. Public reaction. As the story initially broke, there was interest, curiosity, even concern. People wanted to know more. But as time passed and updates didn't come, the conversation shifted. Some began questioning whether the case was being handled behind closed doors. Others wondered if there were influences at play, connections, pressure, or something else entirely. To be clear, there's no confirmed evidence of interference. But the absence of information creates space for those kinds of questions. And once those questions start, they're hard to stop. On social media, discussions popped up here and there. Some users expressed frustration. Others compared this case to previous incidents where arrests were made, but outcomes remained unclear. There's a growing perception, fair or not, that not all cases are treated equally. And that perception matters. Because trust in institutions isn't just built on what happens. It's built on what people can see happening. If the process is invisible, confidence weakens. And that brings us to the bigger picture. Economically, cases like this highlight the challenges of controlling illicit financial flows. Money moving across borders without declaration can impact tax systems, financial stability, and even international relations. Socially, it affects how communities view law enforcement and justice. Politically, it raises questions about governance, oversight, and the effectiveness of anti-corruption measures. And when multiple cases seem to follow a similar pattern, high-profile arrest, followed by silence, it becomes more than just coincidence. It becomes a pattern worth examining. But what happens next in this specific case? That's the part still unfolding, at least behind the scenes. There are several possibilities. The case could still be under investigation, with authorities choosing not to release details publicly. It could have moved through the legal system without significant media coverage. Or there could be complexities that haven't been disclosed, legal, procedural, or otherwise. What's important is not to jump to conclusions without evidence. But it's equally important to recognize when information is missing. Because in cases involving public interest, especially those tied to potential financial crime. Clarity isn't optional. It's necessary. And until that clarity comes, the questions remain. Where did the money come from? Who was it really for? What did investigators find after the arrest? And why has there been so little follow-up? But here's the final thought. Sometimes, the most revealing part of a story isn't what's reported. It's what isn't. Because silence can mean many things. It can mean an ongoing investigation. It can mean a case that didn't develop as expected. Or it can mean something else entirely. And that uncertainty is exactly what keeps people watching, questioning, and demanding answers. So now the question turns to you. What do you think happened behind the scenes in this case? Was it simply a matter of procedure and timing? Or is there more to this story than what we've been told? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.